a Look, the podcast bringing back a personal pop culture recommendation with Ren and Rojo.
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. It's Give It a Look. Welcome, everyone. My name is Rojo. Why are you looking so confused, Rin?
No, I know what you were quoting.
Okay.
I was like,
Just making sure. Maybe that is where I can put the internet noise. I don't know. I'm here as always with my wonderful co-host, Rin. Hey, Rin, who's the most famous person that you've ever run into in real life?
Well, I used to work at like a little, corner shop once upon a time. There was a few celebs, that would come in. Luke Jacobs, he was in Home and Away. I think more recently he was on I'm a Celebrity the other year. Kaz from the morning show on Channel 7. She bought a lettuce, I'm pretty sure. Exciting stuff, Ran into Guy Sebastian, and I think it was just post-fro. He just trimmed off his famous afro. So, yeah, that was pretty exciting because we were in school. We were on an excursion as well. So we ran into him at the train station. What about you? Have you met anyone?
Certainly not as many experiences as you. I haven't done as much like customer-facing stuff, I suppose, which is where those opportunities can really come up. I was one section away from former Collingwood coach Nathan Buckley at U2.
Oh.
A few years ago. I
really enjoyed him on this year's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. He was really good. I really enjoyed him.
Okay. How far did he get?
He got into, I think, like the top 4 or something, or top 3 at least.
Oh, it's better than Collingwood ever did.
Well, speaking of Collingwood, actually, I used to, back in my dog grooming days, I used to wash and groom a few of the Collingwood players' dogs as well when I worked in the city. So there you go.
And also, like, our local MP came into my old work, and now this is the guy who was health minister when the government completely cocked up our vaccine procurement. So if I knew then what I knew now, I probably would have slapped him.
Oh, interesting.
I wasn't living in the electorate at the time, so I'm like, you're wasting your breath, my friend. We are in the final week of TV time here at Give It a Look. It's been a blast jumping into some of our favourite recent TV shows and old favourites. So we've given each other a TV show that the other person has never seen before, and we're going to get their hot take on it. So we're going to start with my recommendation to you, Rin. It is the OG one-season wonder. It's Firefly. Gee, now what is left to be said about Firefly? Well, Firefly comes to us from Joss Whedon. Again, just a proviso here that we know he is cancelled. He's been a very silly man who will not take responsibility for his actions, and he'll probably never work in the industry again. So that's very sad. But when he was at his peak, he was doing great work, or at least it looked like that on the surface. Now, I haven't seen all of Whedon's work. I've seen all of Dollhouse.
Buffy?
I'm persevering with Buffy at the moment. I'm waiting to see when it gets really good.
Yep.
But this is, in my very humble opinion, his best work. I think it feels very singular and very personal, and probably the most grown up and least goofy of his properties. So I'll set the scene. Firefly, we're in the far future. Humans are in space. American culture and Chinese superpower culture have combined to form the Alliance, which is like the governing body of the universe. We follow Captain Malcolm Reynolds, played by Nathan Fillion, who was on the losing side of an intergalactic civil war and now makes a living as a smuggler on board a Firefly-class ship called Serenity. His core crew consists of his pilot Wash, his chipper mechanic Kaylee, his second-in-command and wife of Wash, Zoe, his muscle Jane, who is a very strong man, as well as Inara, who is what is called a companion, which is basically a high-class escort with added kung fu. And in the pilot, they take on a few extra crew members. So they take on Book, who's a shepherd or a holy man with a veiled past. And they take on siblings Simon and River. Simon is a fugitive, and he is on the run with River, who's a psychic who the Alliance experimented on, and he busted them out of their labs. And so their life is really trying to eke out a living, trying to stay one step ahead of the law and navigating this new space western frontier. And when I say space western, I mean space western, because there are a whole bunch of anachronisms in the technology and in the music used here. It's very much looks like a Western at times.
It's very Old West.
Yeah, frontier planets where civilization isn't as developed as it is on some of the Alliance planets. So it's this kind of classism thing going on. Joss Whedon said of this show that he wanted it to look like technology had advanced, but that we were still struggling with the same things as a human race. So getting a job, figuring out who to trust. There's absolutely no aliens in Firefly, but there's plenty of juicy lore, and it's such a shame that it ended so quickly when there were so many other stories to tell. Personally, this show is so special to me because this show reminds me of family. My family, we actually saw Serenity, the feature film that got made a few years later first, and then kind of retroactively went back and watched the series. And, you know, the dialogue and, you know, the great one-liners in the show are part of our family lexicon. We're talking about the pre-streaming age where we were having a collective experience, even though we were so diverse in our interests, and before, you know, we only had one TV, and it's one of a very small handful of shows like that where I remember us all experiencing something at the same time. Mm-hmm. This is my desert island show. If I could take one to a desert island, this is probably it. And I find it very hard to be objective about it as a result. So I thought I'd throw to you, Rin. How many episodes did you watch, and what were your opening thoughts?
I watched, I think it was 4 episodes, but keep in mind, the first episode is an hour and a half. So I was like, oh my God, I'm watching a whole movie. But yeah, it was funny that you say space western, because on my notes I have space cowboys, ?
Tommy Lee Jones just called.
Oh my gosh, you know what? One of my pet hates though is the word ain't. I hate that word.
Is it because it rhymes with taint?
No, no, not quite. But I think because they were trying to be, you know, Western as well, like they would drop a lot of like, you know, G's at the end, like, oh, it's nothing and things like that. And but it wasn't done in a Western way. Like, you know, they didn't sound like cowboys. So I was like, oh, if you're going to speak like that, at least have like a Western accent, I suppose. I don't know. That's my kind of 2 cents on that part. You really have to give me more than just sci-fis, man. 3 out of the 4, you've been giving me sci-fis. As we can tell, I'm not really a big fan of these sci-fis at the moment, you know.
Why is that?
My mind, like, wanders off. I don't find them that engaging. They use jargon I don't understand.
Do you like fantasy, though? Because sci-fi and fantasy are kind of both sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I do like fantasy, but usually there's a bit more, I think, story and drama, and I can kind of follow it a bit more. But I will say with Firefly, there were bits that I did quite enjoy. There were bits that were quite funny. Like, I actually really enjoyed Inara, the companion. I thought she was really lovely and very kind, and, you know, I really enjoyed Wash as well. I thought he was really funny. He's the pilot. I really like Kaylee as well. I think she's real fun. But I don't know if I'm going to break your heart here. I'm not a big fan of Mal. I think he's a bit of a dick, if I'm honest. Like, he kind of is really disrespectful to Inara. Like, he like will call her like a whore to her face, and I'm like, whoa, man, like that's really degrading, and I don't like that.
You know why he's doing it.
Obviously, the writers have used this, oh, you know, if a boy is mean to a girl, it means he likes her kind of thing. Like, that's how I'm kind of interpreting it. You know, obviously this was made in, you know, early 2000s, and, you know, things have changed since then, but I don't particularly like that trope, I suppose. You know, but then, you know, there's a scene where Jane, you know, the big muscle man, was saying something quite rude and disgusting towards Kaylee, and, you know, Mal had a problem with it. I'm like, mate, you can't have a problem with it. You're as bad. You're calling Inara a whore.
He's a very flawed character. When I think of Mal, I think of someone who's very loyal, but is very flawed. And I don't know how closely you were following that initial scene of him fighting at Serenity Valley, but he's almost like a different guy. And there's a suggestion that maybe he had some kind of faith which was broken when he was betrayed basically by the independents or whatever. Not your typical swashbuckling hero. Like, he's a little bit like the Han Solo, but yeah, there's a lot of hurt under there, and he's trying his best to make a little family, but doesn't always know how to do that because he's dealing with his own demons.
You can see he has a sweet side, like, for Kaylee. And, like, that's very sweet. And, you know, I was watching in the episode where they're going to, like, a ball or something. And, you know, she wants to dress up and look really pretty. And then, you know, they're just like, oh, why? But then obviously he's like, okay, you can go to the ball. And it just made her, you know, made her life basically just having this beautiful dress. Like, for once, instead of wearing overalls and coveralls and, you know, working in the engine room, she was like, I just want to wear a dress and be pretty and be a girl for once. And I thought, oh, that was really sweet that, you know, he gave her that opportunity to do that as well. I noticed they're speaking Chinese.
Yep.
Why? Because I don't know if I've missed something or if there's an explanation for that, because I just thought it was very confusing.
From what I know, Blade Runner was probably the first sci-fi film to kind of do this, to imagine a future where these two cultures coalesced. You know, you have people walking around in kind of a lot of American insignia. I mean, what's more American than a cowboy, right? But they're also eating Chinese cuisine and they're dressing in Chinese shawls. Yeah, one of the weirder things about the show is that characters will occasionally just blurt out fluent Chinese, especially if they're trying to curse. No doubt this had an influence on like the Battlestar Galactica reboot where they were always saying frack. But it is one of those weird things that can seem a little bit disarming. What a talent factory. I like to think of this cast as really Whedon's calling card for what would become him directing the Avengers in 2012. And you can definitely see that a lot when we get to Serenity, and we will be getting to Serenity in a future episode. The run of the show was so short that you can quite easily pick a favourite episode or two. And my favourite is probably Out of Gas, which is kind of a bottle episode where Serenity has a critical malfunction where it's basically going to run out of oxygen and explode. And Mel chooses to stay on the ship and wait for help while everyone else goes. And as he's kind of hallucinating with the lack of oxygen, you see various scenes about the history of how each of the core group came to be on Serenity. And it's this real like character-led drama. Another episode, Our Mrs. Reynolds, where Mel accidentally gets married to like a native of a planet, is fantastically hilarious because it's like character-led comedy. Each of the characters on the ship has a different reaction to it happening. Like Kaylee is overjoyed, whereas Anara is kind of indignant that this would happen. Did you dive into some of those ones?
Oh, actually, you know what was a bit creepy? That Reavers episode. So the Reavers are basically humans who have turned into cannibals and just kind of, you know, wreak havoc. You know, it kind of piqued my interest a bit as well. And I quite liked that one. And I did like that episode where, you know, they went to the ball. And I am not a fan of the way it's been shot, I suppose. It's very shaky.
Lots of zooms.
I'm just not into that, man. I don't know. I like a steady camera. I'm already optically challenged. I like to just focus.
What'd you think of the theme song? Because it's a banger.
Yeah, it's all right. It's okay. Yeah, and another thought I had as well would be like Anara, like would have been like every teenage boy's like sexual awakening, I would have thought, right? Hinting at you, maybe. I don't.
What can I say? I think we need to talk about the cancellation a bit and make sure that the blame falls on the right parties. So I probably rewatch this show every year, and every time I do, I'm always like, what the hell was this doing on Fox in 2002? This was completely the wrong network who had a long history of mismanaging acclaimed shows. Arrested Development, Family Guy, need I say more? It's such an ugly duckling as a network drama. It doesn't belong. It's slow-paced, it's character-focused. At times, it's too dark and sexy and scary and weird. We mentioned the breaking out in fluent Chinese. It can be wickedly funny at times. One of the main issues is that Fox actually aired the show out of order. They didn't like the feature-length pilot, so they showed that last and they showed episode 2 first.
Oh.
So they completely screwed Whedon over, and I cannot believe he went back to them again with Dollhouse. The weird name didn't help as well. The popularity really grew after it got cancelled.
Yeah, I know it has quite a cult following.
Yes, it's cult TV royalty, and there was this groundswell to get the movie made, you know, well before crowdfunding was a thing. Universal giving Whedon $40 million to make his dream episode, that just doesn't happen anymore. You know, not all ideas get to live on in other media. Firefly has. There's an excellent comic series by Boom. Now, of course, being part of Fox, Firefly is now owned by Disney, and there's a lot of talk about a reboot coming. I will try my best to keep an open mind, but in my opinion, reboots, they just don't work. They don't work for the people who liked the original property. I think when Arrested Development came back, that kind of soiled them for me, and I thought it's actually okay as it was, so just leave it alone.
I think the only one I've recently enjoyed is Will and Grace.
Yeah, okay.
But I remember going, oh, this is actually well done. Actually, you know what was a good reboot or reimagined was Queer Eye. Love Queer Eye.
Yeah.
So good.
But you're talking about reality TV and a studio sitcom. Like, I think once you get to other styles of shows, it becomes a lot harder. So we'll see what happens. Either way, I think it's been a huge influence on me, and I think on many screenwriters and just nerds around the world. I don't think it has a bad episode, and I love it with all my heart, but it was good to hear another perspective. So, Snog, marry, avoid, Firefly. What you got for me?
All right, I think you'll be happy about this. I'm going to snog Inara.
Yeah, you are.
Because she's a babe. I'm going to marry Wash because he seems really delightful and lovely.
You have to fight Zoe.
Because can we just speak about, was it Alan Tudyk? He is a man of many talents. He is very diverse in his roles, and he can do it all. And I would probably avoid, I was tossing up here, Mal or Jane, because I feel like they're both just terrible.
They have quite a bit in common, except Mel's not a turncoat. I think Jane's got a bit of turncoat in him. Very good. What's your verdict, Rin?
Give it a miss, I think, this time. But if you do want to give it a look, you can find it on Disney+.
Hey everyone, we wanted to take a minute to tell you about our new friends at ZeroCo. ZeroCo make incredible home cleaning and personal care products conveniently delivered direct to your door, minus all the single-use plastic. They're Australian made and owned, all their products are plant-based and feature carbon-negative delivery. The way it works is super simple. You order, ZeroCo deliver, you return their reusable liquid pouches and ZeroCo refill them. It's like the milkman reimagined. If you're new to ZeroCo, use our affiliate link in the episode description and get yourself one of their convenient starter kits. Not only will you be cutting down on household waste and helping clean up our oceans, beaches and landfill, you'll also be supporting this podcast. ZeroCo. Give single-use plastic the flick.
So we're going to go into my recommendation for the week. So I gave you Bridgerton. Woo! So Bridgerton was a very, very, very popular show last year. It is set in like an alternative history where there is like a racially integrated London during the Regency era, and basically it is the social season. You know, all the eligible ladies who have become women, you know, are debuted to society essentially to be married off to rich and wealthy men, you know, and we meet viscounts and viscountesses, you know, lords and ladies and dukes and duchesses and, you know, the Queen as well. And it's basically set around the Bridgerton family. It's actually based off a book series as well, which I'd be quite curious to read as well. But anyway, it's set upon Daphne Bridgerton, who is named like the diamond of the season by the Queen. With that, she has a lot of suitors who are very interested, but her brother is very much protective, I suppose. He's very picky. And then we also meet a, unknown character called Lady Whistledown. So she's like an anonymous writer who dispenses her own gossip newsletter. She'll write about Daphne, and this will scare away suitors as well as her brother. So we find that the diamond of the season doesn't seem to have many suitors that want to marry her, you know, at this point. And so that's really interesting. And then we meet many other characters, like we meet the Duke of Hastings, Simon Bassett, who is very, very handsome, very delicious. You know, we find later on that the two of them make a plan. He never wants to get married and she wants to find a husband. And so they pretend to be courting so that, you know, more suitors are interested in Daphne, and that the crazy mothers leave him alone and stop pestering him to marry their daughters, essentially. It's, produced by Shonda Rhimes as well, known for Grey's Anatomy, obviously one of my favorites, as I've mentioned several times. And, it's just a great show. I am a big fan of period dramas as well, rewatching it. And I think I watched 7 episodes in a day. But when I first watched it, I watched the whole thing in a day. So anyway, let us hear your opening thoughts, Roger.
Well, period pieces are not my jam. I thought I found one I liked when I became like an uber fan of Greta Gerwig's Little Women, but then I realised that's not a period piece. That's Civil War era America. It doesn't really count.
Yeah, it's a period of time.
Sure, but maybe something will come along that captures me. But at the same time, I can appreciate it's all about the social goings on. It's all about, because women were so much more vulnerable back then.
Well, women were just a commodity, essentially.
Yes.
In these times as well. Or they were just purely brought up just to be a wife and be married and have children. Like, they were nothing else. And Daphne actually brings that up in an episode. She's like, I think she's saying to one of her brothers, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. This is all I know. This is all I've been brought up to be.
So the tension there is, are these women going to get married kind of thing? Because if they don't, there's actually pretty dire life consequences for them if they don't.
Yeah, they have to live at home forever and their parents don't want that.
Yeah, or, I don't know, if there's no one there to support them or care for them in that way, who knows. I thought I would bounce off this pretty hard given the fact that I'm not into period pieces, but I'm going to be fair because I think there's enough going on here to be compelling, and it's one of those things where I can see the appeal. I can absolutely see the appeal.
Yeah.
And I can see how this took off. Yeah, we get the impression very early on that Daphne is definitely, the most put together of the Bridgerton girls.
I love her sister. She is so funny.
Eloise?
Yes. Like at the start when she's like yelling and she's just like, Daphne, we must make haste.
Eloise was actually one of my favourites. She had a real kind of Joe March thing about her in terms of, she wants to buck the system. She's not interested in the pageantry and getting married. She wants to make a living by writing. Like it's Joe March, basically.
It's very Joe March. Yeah, you're very, very correct.
Interesting touches with, there's anachronistic music put in here. Like you'll hear the Vitamin String Quartet playing Bad Guy.
Yes.
And you're like,
how good is it?
Well, it was okay. I guess it was a nice
it's great because that's the thing. Like, the show is made, it's a period drama, but it's made for contemporary audiences.
Yeah.
So, you've got music like Thank You Next by Ariana Grande, you've got Girl Like You by Maroon 5, and you've got In My Blood by Shawn Mendes, and you kind of sit there and you go, wait, what's this? This sounds familiar. And you go, oh, because it's played by string instruments, and then you kind of go, oh, damn, I know that.
And we're seeing this a bit with shows like The Great, where they want to throw in anachronisms, whether it's in the language or in the music. So it's not alone there. I thought Lady Whistledown kind of serves as the gossip girl of the universe as well. So it's a melting pot of influences, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And did you notice that Julie Andrews is the narrator?
Yeah.
Isn't she amazing? Oh, I love
wonderful.
her and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah. Treasure.
She must be protected at all costs, Roger.
I didn't know she was still alive. So by the end of the pilot, the central plot has been thrown into motion with Daphne and Simon making this, we're going to fake being a couple to benefit each other. And I was like, okay, it's holidayed again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's holidayed again. And, you know where this is going.
Bit more saucy, though. A bit more saucy and scandalous, I think.
Very horny show. It was interesting to see that Duke Simon, although, very headstrong and independent, is also kind of under the thumb of other women in his life, particularly Lady Danbury. I mentioned that I really liked Eloise, but also her friendship with Benedict. Like, I thought their scenes were really strong. I should mention I watched the first 4 episodes. So the first half of the first season. I think there's a second one coming as well.
Yes, and it's been greenlit for a 3rd and 4th season as well. So that's exciting. Well, for someone like me.
And for a place like Netflix, which, we've talked about them having difficulty with knowing how to pace their shows and whether they're actually going to have an ending. I guess that's a good sign for fans of this. It really dives into the tragedy of Marina as well. And I guess that is kind of indicative of the things we were saying about women at the time.
I know it sounds bad, but I couldn't care less about her story arc, to be honest. Like, I feel like it was unnecessary. The whole, during the show, I was just like, oh, I just feel she's unnecessary. Like,
yeah.
Go away.
it's there to show some contrast, I suppose. I was going to say it dives into, the complete lack of sexual education that women were getting as well, and the problems that was kind of causing. And
it's a shame you didn't watch episode 5 because that's where this real sexiness comes in.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you're into that, and Daphne kind of learns a few things.
Oh, gosh. Well, yeah, I'm sure it's nothing I haven't seen before.
Where they live is basically called like the ton, right? The ton meaning like is short for like le baton, meaning etiquette in French. Also meaning things like manners and style, which is very much, aristocracy at its highest, I suppose. You got the queen, you've got, dukes and stuff like I mentioned before.
I don't have many other notes, maybe because I watched this while I had COVID. So again, it's got that kind of fever dream feel to it. So it kind of blended together.
Well, here's a little tidbit for you. The queen in every scene that she's in has a new wig.
Okay, yeah, didn't pick up on that at all. And also, you mentioned the racially integrated England. I didn't really pick up on that. I just thought that maybe they just had dukes who were black in that time, but I guess not.
Basically, what they wanted to achieve from the show was like people could see themselves in it. And that's why they've racially integrated. Back in the 19th century, lords and ladies wouldn't have been of different ethnicities as such in London. I would not think. Yeah, no, so it was nice because I remember watching it and I was like, oh, this is good. And like I have seen, on socials, people being like, that's really nice. Like it's nice they've got people of colour and yeah, they can see themselves in the show.
Well, Shonda Rhimes herself is African-American and has, casted leads such as Viola Davis and Kerry Washington in her shows in the past, yeah.
Now it's time for Snog, Marry, Avoid. So who are your selections?
Keel. Let's keep it in the family, hey? I said Snog Daphne because she's fine.
She is fine.
I said marry Eloise.
Because she's amazing.
Yeah, the Joe Much thing just works for me, whatever. And I said I'd avoid Lady Whistledown because I don't want no gossip, no tea getting out about me.
Wait till you find out who it is.
I was going to say I don't know who it is, so I don't know who has access to everything and how they're doing it.
I know who it is.
Yeah. As I mentioned, not really my kind of show. Looking at it objectively, I can see that it is a show with appeal, just not for me. I'm not planning on going back to it, but I am going to give it a look rating. And if you wanted to have a look at it, it's currently streaming on Netflix with season 2 should probably be out by the time you hear this.
Look, mate, I'll probably watch it in a day, let's be honest.
I don't mind if you spoil it, it's fine. Well, if you have a hot take on Firefly or Bridgerton, maybe the new season of Bridgerton, or you have your own Snog, Marry, Avoids from these shows, please reach out to us on social media. Rin, where can people find us?
Cool. So on our Insta and our Twitter, you can find us at Give It A Look Pod, and our email is giveitalook1@outlook.com.
That is the place to be. So TV time is a wrap for March. We hope you've enjoyed it. Please give us feedback on how it was for you. Next week, we're bringing back a very special segment from last year that kind of took off. We are bringing back Music Month for April. So
I can't beatbox, but I tried.
We are transitioning to albums. What is your first one for me next week, Rin?
Cool. So I am giving you Once Upon a Mind by James Blunt. I find that the older I get, the more I understand James Blunt.
Smoking a blunt, yes. In order to choose my recommendation, I looked back on last year's from me and I realised it was a bit of a sausage fest. So next week you are getting not one, not two, but 3 whammon, and they're all sisters. It is Haim. The album is Days Are Gone. A little bit of a summery pop fun there.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's a wrap for another week. We hope you join us in April for Music Month. It's going to be a great time. Rin, closing statements?
Doing nothing is hard. You never know when you're done.
So wise.
So wise. That's why I wear glasses.
No power in the verse can stop us.
That's right.